Uprisers, hi, Tricia LaCroix with Sacred Uprising Institute, Awakening the Consciousness of Infinite Love. This is our last video for the day, and we are going to have the opportunity to hear Dr. Lisa speak about everyday sacredness, my body is a temple. So before she jumps on, I am going to share with you tomorrow's schedule. Tomorrow at noon Pacific Standard Time, we have our astrologer Christy, and Christy will be talking about Mars action and willpower. And then at 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I will continue my series, Calling in the One. And let it jump Lisa on. So calling in the one, and I do have a guest that will be coming onto that video to share with us how she called in the one. Lisa, hey, how are you?
How are you?
Good. It's so good to see your face. It seems like it's been like way longer than a week.
I know. It's been like, I don't know what's going on with time right now, but
I know.
It seems to be going really fast and then like slow at the same time.
I know. Right, you're exactly right. But something's up. I didn't realize it until I saw you. I'm thinking it's been like 3 weeks since we talked, and that's not been the case at all.
No, it's been like, a few days, but whatever.
Right. Well, before we start, I just wanted to mention one more time, folks, don't forget we have the Sacred Uprising Conference, which will be September 18th, 19th, and 20th at Mount Madonna outside of Santa Cruz, California. If you want to check out the facility, go to mountmadonna.org. So, Dr. Lisa, let's do this.
Let's do it.
Everyday sacredness, my body is a temple.
Is a temple. Every time somebody says let's do it, I think about that song by Tone Loc from the 90s where he's like, let's do it.
We need a sound machine so when I say stuff like that, someone can hit that song.
Right. Well, first of all, thanks to all the live watchers that are here. It's super exciting to have you with us.
Hi, Lori. We have Lori watching.
Hi, Lori. I love you. So we are going to talk about everyday sacredness. My body is a temple. Should we just jump right in?
Let's jump right in. Let's do this.
Okay, so when I think of everyday sacredness, we talked a bit about this last week, and some of you may have seen this, some of you may not, so I'll give a little brief recap that for those of us, especially who have come out of religious backgrounds, that creating everyday sacredness is something that is a practice that is very different from the religious practices that we're accustomed to. And everyday sacredness is literally about recognizing that we are, in my opinion, in my view, divine beings having a human experience, which is really designed to teach us how to be more divine in this experience.
Right.
If any sense whatsoever, it's like we are here to learn how to master these things like unconditional love and self-mastery and spirit, being a vessel for the spirit. And part of that is cultivating everyday sacredness in your own life. So one of the ways that I really suggest people get started is really with, first of all, just that understanding. Right? The understanding is of primary importance. When you understand, when you truly get, I am a spiritual being having a human experience, it makes things different.
Right.
You see the world in a different way.
Yeah. You treat yourself differently. Everything. Yeah. Completely different.
Yeah. Everything is different. Everything changes. It is definitely a transformative experience when you recognize that you don't have to go into a particular place or to hear from the spirit, or you don't have to be in, on your knees in the altar praying to hear from God, although there's nothing wrong with that if that's your particular practice. It's simply about understanding that God is one with each of us.
Right.
Or the divine or sacred or source, or however you choose to phrase that language, or however you conceptualize that, and bringing it into your everyday reality. So when I say, talking about my body as a temple, it's really understanding, again, as we talked a little bit about last week, that we're back in like, and if you're come from a Christian background like I do, that you understand that there was this, back in the Old Testament days, there was the Holy of Holies. It was the place where once a year the priest went in, purified himself, and made sacrifices to God, and that's where the messages came from. And so recognizing that we are no longer, we no longer need that, like, or never did, or how, I mean, just
Right.
depending on your,
Yeah, right.
that we can commune with the divine in every day, in every way. It starts within. For, you can't give to others, or you can't give out to the world from an empty cup. So you have to learn how to fill that stuff for yourself, and how to create those practices for yourself,
Right.
before you can take it out to the world.
Right.
Or you can like not, and know what you need to do and not do it anyway, because we're human and we're still learning. And so it's like, again, no judgment. It's just like, if and you still don't do, it's fine. We're still, we're just walking each other home in this.
Yeah, it depends what level people want to go to. So if they want to stay where they are, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. However, if you want to keep upgrading, if you want to ascending, if you want to keep transforming your life, there is a requirement, there is a responsibility, and that is to change the way that you live within your life and what your lifestyle is. So it's all dependent. So when you say no judgment, yeah, you can be wherever you want, but if you want to transcend, there are changes that have to be made.
Right. There's work to be done. It's
right.
not, as much as people would like to imagine that spirituality is this like easy peasy, rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns, it's not. It's
right.
work.
Right.
It takes work. It takes intention. It takes dedication. And that's where starting within, because again, you can't give to people what you don't have. And so if you want to be a person who embodies unconditional love, well, that first has to start within.
Right.
And for many of us, that starts with, because it is, doing the inner work is important, but it's also important to understand that sometimes people have to start where they're at, and that may be at the external. It may be, I'm thinking about my own journey and to self-love and self-acceptance, and it was like, there was a point where I'm like, I'm not really sure what I like about myself, like in any way. I was, I had to start from the ground up, and so it started out as literally simple as, I really like my fingernails and the way that my fingernails grow. I've got really, that's a really great feature, and that seems really simple, but it was a place to start. And so it's like, then you start, then it was like, okay, well, I'm going to take care of my hand, my nails, and I'm going to make sure I'm putting intention and effort and showing myself the love in those ways.
Right.
So that was a simple start. So now it's more about learning how to bring that into the everyday experience, in the sense of what you put in your body. So how you eat. And I'm not gonna, like, this whole thing about, like eating healthy, like that's all important, sure, but there's also there also has to be flexibility with that. So it's like,
right.
Fuel your body with what is good for it. Drink your healthy shakes, eat healthy foods, eat things that nourish your body, but also understand that it's okay to have some not so healthy things that are good, that make you feel good.
It's a matter of having a balance.
Right. It's like, if you're eating nothing but chocolate all day, that's probably not a great idea. But if you eat chocolate,
what?
I don't know.
Wait, now that's heresy. That is heresy.
Right. Right. Sorry, y'all. But really, it's like, look at your life. I mean, I think about like, and I can see it. I don't know about anybody else that's watching, but I can definitely see like where my internal being and how I'm feeling internally reflected in my external. So if I'm feeling really great inside and feeling really spiritually connected, then it's no longer, I don't struggle with things like eating healthy and working out and meditating and cutting out unhealthy stuff from my life. It's when I'm not feeling so great, when I'm not feeling so connected, that I see those behaviors start to pop back up. And so it's one, the body as a temple is one way of monitoring your own spirituality and where you are in the journey. So if you find yourself waking up in the morning and you're like, oh, I hate my life and I just want to eat like junk food, and all you drink is like coffee all day and then wine all night, well, maybe there's some internal recalibration that needs to happen.
Right, exactly. Right.
So treating your body as a temple it's never about shame. Okay, so when people are like, I'm going on a diet, I hate that whole idea, because a diet should be a lifestyle. It's not
I
something that you
agree.
do occasionally. It's how you treat yourself consistently. It's like if you were to meet like, well, like the way that like Charles loves you. You know, he takes care of you. He brings you things that you like. He nurtures you. Those are the things that we have to do for ourselves.
Right,
We have to
exactly.
source from within. And one of those ways is taking care of your body, and never from a place of shame or from I'm inadequate, I'm not good enough, I hate this part of myself. It's literally about I love myself so much, and I love the divinity that lives within me, that I'm going to feed myself well. I'm going to give my body what it needs, what it deserves. I'm going to exercise, not because because I hate my body, but because I love it. And exercise, again, doesn't have to be like, you don't have to be in the gym 6 days a week, like lifting heavy weights. For some people, their exercise may simply be walking.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's really what works for you. We're all different and we all flow differently, and we have to learn to recognize that what works for somebody else. Like I couldn't work out the way Shanti works out every day. That's just not, Shanti is a trainer on Beachbody. He's like dripping sweat and he's like, I'm smiling because I love it. I'm like, that's crazy. I don't love this. This is not. But really recognizing what works for you, and cultivating that space for yourself.
You know, you've said several times on this video that it has to start within first before you can give it to somebody else. We just did a video about an hour ago with Terry, and she was talking about forgiveness and learning to forgive yourself. You cannot forgive somebody else unless you've forgiven yourself. You can't give love unless you learn to love yourself. You can't see other people's sacredness if you don't view yourself as sacred, divine, and holy. Everything starts within.
Right. Everything. Right. And I believe that that's part of the point of this journey, is to recognize that regardless of what's happening outside of us, hey Dak, that we have to learn how to cultivate and create those sacred spaces for ourselves in our lives, regardless of what's happening outside of us.
Right.
Otherwise, we become like, instead of what we should be is I'm shoulding on us right now. So let me rephrase that. What we want to be doing is being the masters of our own internal experience, right? We don't want necessarily our emotions to be in charge. When our emotions are in charge, it's like the tail wagging the dog.
Right.
When our feelings are in charge, that's the tail wagging the dog. What we want to be able to do is learn how to master. It's that self-mastery process of, okay, I'm having this feeling, I'm observing it, I'm feeling it, I'm letting it be what it is without judging it. I'm having this particular experience, but I know how to move myself through it and out of it.
Right. Right. And you can tell when you need to learn that self-mastery with your emotions. We all know people, their emotions, there's high and low lows, and it's like a roller coaster ride of emotions. Self-mastery is learning to have the balance of the emotions. The balance of everything is where God exists.
Right. Absolutely. It's that, where your emotions are more like this, but understand, and you're able to, so I kind of see it like ride the emotions. It's like a surfboard,
right?
Although I've surfed, but I've watched many surfers. It's more about like the ocean is your the waves in the ocean are your emotions, and you are a surfboard, and you're like just able to skillfully navigate that, navigate your experiences, so that when things are happening outside of you, external circumstances, you get a parking ticket, you get an unexpected bill, your boyfriend breaks up with you, your car has the flat tire, that instead of being like, devastated or having like really huge emotions that you end up going down for a long time, that you learn how to ride through those emotions in a more skillful manner. And that begins with that everyday sacredness. It's learning how to create that space for yourself. I remember in my journey when I was first beginning, I started a yoga practice. And this is so funny. It's the funniest thing to look back on, but I remember like going to a few classes, and every time we would get to the end where it was like, laying back in the corpse pose, I would lay there for like 5 seconds, and then my eyes would pop open, and it would be like my task list was running through my head, and I'm like, I just want to get out of here. Like, I can't be still. there was so much anxiety
Right.
because and of course, after I practiced and learned how to expand my capacity for silence and being alone and mastering feelings of loneliness and all of that, it was much easier. And then it became my favorite part of the practice. Then it was like, oh, you know, like I have 3 minutes to just lie here, and I don't have to do anything, and I don't have to be anywhere. I'm just here in the stillness and the quiet.
Right.
And that is part of cultivating everyday sacredness, not necessarily doing yoga, but learning how to cultivate peace in the quiet places.
It's interesting that you said that, because what I learned to do is that when the turmoil would hit me, and I started practicing this in 2012 or 2013, when when I was getting hit with the emotion, I looked at it, instead of reacting to it, that I would go into I would freeze and just stare at whatever was about to hit me, sort of like the deer in the headlights, just looking at it, trying to figure out what this is. But you know what? I like what you said. How about laying down in the stillness of it and just being?
Yeah.
Instead of being in that frozen mode. Now that has helped me, and I've had great growth from that. However, I want to switch that up a little and just kind of trust fall into it.
It's funny that you said that, because I've really been hearing that a lot recently in my own spiritual practice, is about just trust falling into the universe's arms, just like standing and just falling backwards and knowing that the universe is going to catch you, that source, God, is going to, it has your back and has your best interest in mind. And like, regardless of what is happening on the outside, that it's all happening for good. It's helping you grow. And I'm not saying that it's easy. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Like there are
right.
things that I look back now and I think, I don't know how I survived it. I don't know how I made it through that. But recognizing that getting through it has made me a better person and has increased my capacity. But again, when you're living in a space of just like running all the time and constantly run one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, you're not taking the space to cultivate that everyday sacredness, then it's not, you don't have the space to cultivate those skills.
Right.
So, you know, meditation, for instance, that is an everyday sacred practice. That's something that that people can implement in treating their body like a temple. Just sitting in the stillness, not having a need to fill the silence, not judging your thoughts when you're meditating and your thoughts start bouncing all over the place. Just learning how to take the observational stance and being like, okay, my mind is all over the place right now, without judging it, just being with it. So,
you know, it's interesting, because when we, you know, as mothers, when we had our children in the crib and they were crying because they couldn't go to sleep, we didn't walk in there screaming at them and throwing words at them to get them to go to sleep. What we did was pick them up, quietly rock them until they fell asleep. And that's what we need to do with our mind as well. When it's in bed screaming and crying because it's got a lot to say and it doesn't want to be silent, how about being kinder, acknowledging what is going on, but being kinder and loving it into a relaxed state?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And understanding again that when I fully understood that I was a divine being having a human experience, it was like, you know, my mind was just blown. It shifted, because I'm like, if God himself or herself walked into my house, like there would be certain ways that I would respond. It would be, you know, what can I get for you? Like, is there anything I can do for you? How may I be of service to you? Right. But for us, we're like, get up, get off your ass. You're being lazy. You know, we have this tendency to be really harsh and really, really cruel to ourselves. But when you recognize, understanding that I am a divine being, that you start to treat yourself differently. So it's about learning how to give yourself that same care and that same respect that you would give if, you know, the divine, his or herself or itself, were to walk into your home.
Right.
So then it becomes, again, an act of worship. It's like I make my healthy shake in the morning and I drink it and I'm like, oh, this is feeding my body. It's, you know, it's giving my brain food. It's all of these things. And I don't do it out of any other reason other than I know that if I don't do it, that by 12 o'clock, my stomach's going to be growling. I'm going to be a little bit grumpy. There's going to be some ill effects that I'm not going to like, and I'm not going to like, how I feel. So it's like, I understand that I'm better for myself, for my children, for the people that I'm in service to, for humanity, when I'm taking care of myself.
Right.
And so it's a, really, and it sounds super, I mean, it's super simple, right? It's very
It's
simple.
super simple, but I think that people get so lost in their everyday stuff that
Right.
that we as a collective miss out on life because we're looking for something that's super hard when everything, the changes that we need to make in our life are just little tweaks. That's
Right.
all they are. And it's being
Right.
mindful and taking care of ourselves first and foremost.
Right. I tell when I used to do psychotherapy, I really don't do much of it anymore. But when I used to, I would always tell my clients that, like, this process is very, very simple, but it's not easy. If it was easy, you would have done it already. If it was easy, you would heal these wounds already. It's simple. But we have to undo so many years of conditioning and so much of our own ancestral wounding in order to get there, that it's not easy. So by all means, when I'm sitting here talking about this, people, please understand that it's not like I just woke up one day and was like, oh, it's all making sense. Like, it has been a journey, and it has been a journey that has, like, sometimes I felt like I was crawling on my hands and knees across broken glass and hot flames, because it was painful.
Right.
But once you get through it and get to the other side and start transcending those circumstances, it becomes much easier to make the practice and then to keep it, because it requires consistency. The everyday sacredness is not something that you do one time and then it's like you don't eat healthy one time and suddenly your body is all in great condition.
Right.
Like,
lifestyle. Yeah.
Practice, a daily discipline, and that's where it becomes intentional. It becomes like you listen to certain meditations, listen to certain affirmations, implement certain practices in your life so that you create the space for that expansion to happen.
And there's different sides to us, and I think each side warrants different types of sacredness. So there is the relationship Trisha that is a different personality from the business Trisha, and there are things that I implement into that part of myself. But when I'm in a business mode, there are other sacred. I treat it differently. It's a different it's a different side of my sacredness. You have the book of Ezekiel that talks about it's Word of God in it. Word of God, I believe, has 4 faces. Well, for each face, there's a different personality. There's a different way of being treated and being honorable to other people. It's you have to, and sometimes for me personally, it's hard to keep a balance, especially in business. That's my nemesis, is how do I apply my spiritual sacred principles into business and keep that balance going, letting people know that they are loved, and I honor their time. When I was in a career in experiential marketing, I needed to have that side of me, but yet there are deadlines and we need these deadlines, and you have to be a taskmaster. So how do you keep that sacredness within that balance?
Right. Well, it's important to always, I think that the bigger thing is always try and do everything, even setting boundaries, from a space of love. Like, if you're not coming from a space of love, if there's anger, if there's disappointment, if there's frustration, take a step back. And I haven't always been good at this. Like, seriously, like, let me just be very candid. This is not something that I've always been good at. Taking a step back and waiting until you get into that space of sacredness. When Eden was my daughter, she's 9 now, when she was in kindergarten, I believe. You know how in kindergarten they're like, it takes them like 11 years to get their shoes on. They're like, just anything right. To get out of the house is like such an adventure. Yes. And they were kind of lagging. They were both kids were going slow, and I was getting frustrated. I was like, we have to go. We're going to be late. You got to get your shoes on. Come on, like, move it. I was in that taskmaster mode. And this was one of my greatest lessons. My little pint-sized guru, she looks at me, and she's all of 5 years old, and she turns and looks at me, and she's like, maybe you need to go to your room and practice some mindful breathing. And I was like, no, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what I need to do. And so I did. I took her advice. I went upstairs to my room and I sat on my bed and I was like, okay, like calm down, like get it together. And she comes in my room and she like walks me, literally is like walking me through like, inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And it was the cutest thing, but it was such a powerful lesson about the necessity for creating that everyday sacredness, that if I had gotten up earlier and spent some time breathing and setting my intentions and setting the course of my day, I would have been less frustrated.
Right, sure. Right.
But so it is really about cultivating that space and that discipline around getting up in the morning and doing the things that you know you need to do. And also doing it from, again, like there's stuff that needs to get done. Like I run a business, actually run a couple of businesses, and there's stuff that needs to get done. And it's not all, there's not all this time always for, you know, love and light and rainbows. And
right.
It's like sometimes
exactly.
I get done. And long as you're coming from a space of love around, you know, this boundary or this limit or this deadline is not because of any other reason other than it's what needs to happen.
Right.
Then it's much more fruitful.
And you can't control other people's reactions to it. You just can't. And you have to understand it and just let it go and keep moving forward.
Right. Make like Elsa and let it go.
Let it go.
You know, that's the truth. And understand that if it's not working for you, if a certain situation isn't working for you because it's causing you stress or anxiety, like rethink your relationship to how you're thinking things should be done. And B, if it continues to be an issue, it's totally okay to say this isn't working for me and I need to go in a different direction or do something different. That is totally okay. And it's not wrong. I think we as women in particular are taught, you know, from the very early ages, it's like, you know, girls are sugar and spice and everything nice, and we're told to sit down and be quiet, act like a lady. We're given all these messages about how we're supposed to be, not recognizing that sometimes the goddess is fierce. You know, sometimes the goddess will pull out her sword and she'll cut right to the marrow, not because she's trying to hurt somebody, but because she's trying to take care of a situation. Usually it's in service of protecting others or protecting her own self or her own sovereignty. But we have to understand that we have both of those capabilities. We have the ability to be both feminine and fierce, and that is okay.
Right.
Not only is it okay, but right.
Absolutely. Yep.
So cultivating everyday sacredness with your body as a temple, it's really about creating systems. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but people always ask me, they're like, how do you get so much done? And how do you, how have you been so successful in your life and done like a single mom and whatnot? It's because I have systems. I have systems in place. I have routines. Not that I don't, again, fall off of that because I'm human. I'm still growing and learning as well. But it's like, having a routine, rituals around, lighting your sage, doing a meditation, visualizing, whatever it is that works for you. For each individual, that's different. But it's definitely important to find that and intentionally commit to creating space to continue those practices, because that is how you tap into your own divinity.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. We all have to have our rituals, and if you have the time and the wherewithal to go ahead and put the laundry, you have the time to do the sage, you have the time to do the meditation. It's taking the time. It's understanding this is really important. These videos are not my spiritual work. My spiritual work is when I'm alone in my home and it's quiet and I go inward. That's where the magic happens, and my outer world will be a clear reflection of my inner world. And I think that is so important for people to understand. If your outer world is in chaos, you need to look within, not in anger or not with frustration with yourself, but with compassion that, okay, I need to change some things within so my outer world can be reflective of a peace within me.
Right. Absolutely. I remember having this realization probably about 15 years ago that I was like, wow, the condition of my apartment at the time this was when I was still single and didn't have kids or pets or anything, was always a reflection of what was going on inside. So if it was like, if the house was a mess, then, and mess by my standards is probably like clean by most people's standards, but you know, whatever. If that was happening, then it was like an indication. It was like a red flag saying like, hey, hold on a second, something's going on here. And so it's again recognizing those symptoms in yourself and recognizing, okay, this is happening outside. This is going on, then it's telling me that I need to look, like you said, with compassion within. It's like, okay, there's something inside of me that needs some attention. What is it? And what is that?
You're absolutely right. So I guarantee that you feel the same way. When my head is a mess, then things around the house become a mess. It's a clear reflection. So when the energy is dirty within, you're not going to be taking care of your outward space either. It's everything is a reflection from what's within. And it's paying attention to that. And that's what the thing is, we can take those things and instead of fighting it, go, oh, okay, wait a second. Yeah, I know I need to clean my house. Yeah, I know I need to do the laundry that's been piled up. Yeah, I know I need to do this and that. But while I'm doing that, let me look within what is creating this mess outwardly.
Right. Absolutely. If you're neglecting things in your physical environment, it's a pretty good indication that you're neglecting things on the internal environment. Right. And so it's a great opportunity to say like, okay, hold on a second, what's going on here? And what do I need to correct? What do I need to self-correct? Because it's never about judgment. I used to be so hard on myself. I was so hard on myself about everything. Like everything had to be like, you know, everything had its place. I literally in college, I had my closet color coded.
Yeah, I did that. Mine is still that way.
Yeah,
it's color coded.
But what it was reflecting, honestly, was this sense of like I didn't feel in control of my life. I didn't feel like I had a lot of power, and so I was trying to control my environment. So it was like there was never a dirty dish in the sink. It was pristine. It looked great, but what it was showing was that this like external experience was being hyper managed instead of just being human and allowing myself to have that room and that flexibility. It was not. I'm telling you, it was not a fun way to live.
That is really interesting because I used to be that way. And when I was a kid, that's the only control I had was over my bedroom. And it was perfect. Nothing was ever out of place. Everything, I cleaned it 3-4 times a week. That's the only control I had. But that is something that I continued out throughout my adult life until I'll say just recently when Charles came into my life, I've eased up a lot. And I'm just like, okay, if it's a mess, it's a mess. If right. You know, it's never filthy, but it doesn't have to be perfect any longer. And that is a clear reflection of just where I am with my life. So there's a balance.
Absolutely. And it depends on the root of where it's coming from. Because I like my house clean. I like it to be organized just because I like it to be clean and organized. But it's no longer coming from a place of this, I need to control everything in my environment so that it's perfect. It's not that like kind of energy.
Right.
It's more like, this is just how I like my space.
Right.
And how I like to be. And so it's a different, but I also have the space. Like I have 2 baskets full of laundry upstairs that I need to put away right now, but I've been busy this week. And so I just have time, and I don't walk into my room and go, oh, you're such a failure and a total F up and like, what a horrible mom. Like, you know, none of that. It's just like, I'll get to it when I get to it, but I'm busy this week and I just haven't had time, and that's fine. But it's really about that internal, I keep coming back to the sacred, everyday sacredness is literally about learning how to bring what's inside and have it reflect outside. And if the outside isn't reflecting something that you want to see, learn how to turn inward and recalibrate.
Agreed. Wow.
Because we do have the ability to do that. That's the amazing thing, that having been a person who's been very much in my past led by my emotions and my feelings and all of those things, and then coming to a place where I have more self-mastery and I'm not like just like like a horse being led by the bit, like, oh, my emotions are going here, oh, now they're over here, but more of just like, okay, this, like, I'm the boss of me. Like, I am the boss of me. I get to choose how I feel, or I get to choose. Feelings are feelings, right? Emotions are literally just energy in motion. It's just an
Right.
emotion. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's the truth. It may be something that you need to shift your perception on.
Right.
It may be something that you're just not seeing correctly. It may be your childhood programming that is coming up, and it's saying, like, I need attention and I need some healing here. And that's all well and good. It's just learning how to take that pause. I think it was Viktor Frankl that said, between stimulus and response, there's that sweet spot of being able to choose.
Oh, I love that.
And that is the space that I'm talking about. But you can't have that space until you've learned how to cultivate it. That's where this everyday sacredness practice comes in. It's that creating an understanding. Every time I choose to put something healthy in my mouth to eat, I'm creating a sacred space. Every time that I choose to exercise, I'm creating some sacred space. I'm telling myself, I'm telling my body, I'm sending the message, I love myself enough to continue on this journey and continue learning how to practice self-mastery, because I understand that the better and more grounded I am, the more deeply rooted I am, the better I can be of service to, everybody in my circle.
Right.
Everybody
Right.
with whom I contact. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love this discussion. In fact, we could do a whole series just on this and go one thing at a time. And I think the most important thing that you said, and I concur with this, is that your outward world is a clear reflection of what's going on internally. So that gives me pause to consider, okay, what truly is going on in my world and what is it reflecting back to me? What do I need to work on within? And it can even be a gift that people bring to you. It may be somebody who's an emotional friend, and they're kind of throwing up all their emotions on you. But instead of making it about them, you can step back and go, okay, I understand this. I have compassion for them, but let me step back, and what's going on in here that this is being thrown up on me? So that's a great lesson, and that's something I'm going to take away this week and work on.
Absolutely. That is the thing that we have to understand, is that everybody in our lives is mirroring something back to us. It's every experience that we have is an opportunity to grow. Everything that happens is an invitation. It's like the universe is saying, like, okay, what is happening in your external world right now that is needing attention? I was thinking in terms of physical health as I was preparing for this conversation, in terms of our physical well-being, right, and the metaphysical connection between our like physical symptoms and things that are and the spiritual correlations. And I'm thinking about, like, I remember in college, like, I worked full-time, went to school full-time. I was like always busy, just always burning the candle at both ends. And like every single like Christmas break would come around, and I would end up like laid up with like bronchitis. Like I would have bronchitis for like 2 weeks. Lori actually probably remembers this, because I would come to work, like when we worked together, I'd come to work and I'd be like, but when I finally started looking, like, what is this about? And I started making the connection that bronchitis is metaphysically connected to unprocessed grief. And it was really about the fact that I didn't give myself the space to take care of myself, because I was working so hard and doing so much, that when I got a little bit of downtime, it was like suddenly everything would hit, and then I would be laid up and I'd be sick, and it would be like my body's way of saying, like, slow it down, sister. It took me a long time to figure out that that's what I needed to do, but I'm much more of a fast learner now. But it also is an indication that I needed to heal, that there were things that I needed to heal. And so once I became aware of that, I was like, okay, I guess it's back to therapy I go.
Right.
Hacking.
Wow. Once we healed, I mean, patterns are broken and a universe emerges. I had that. I
Right.
used to get sick horribly with a cold around my birthday every single year. This is the first year it didn't happen. And I'm still shocked that it didn't happen. But evidently, I broke some pattern.
Right.
Something's shifted, and so it hasn't happened. Wow,
Right.
that's really cool. Okay.
And we have to pay attention to that. I did a presentation with a colleague a while back, and we talked about the effects of oppression and racism in particular on people, and that it shows up in anxiety, depression, hypertension, other physical symptoms. And so we have to pay attention to that when our bodies are out of alignment, when we have illnesses and we have sicknesses. And this is in no way, shape, or form. So please don't anybody hear this as like there's something wrong with you and you're creating your own system. I think that is a misappropriation and an abuse of some of this. People that do that tend to be extremists, and I'm not an extremist. Sometimes you just get a freaking flu bug and that's it, and there's no like
there's a balance. There's a balance to it, right?
Right. There is something to pay attention to, that if you're constantly having the same issues, if you're constantly struggling with certain illnesses or certain things continue to be an issue, it could be a sign that there's something that you need to pay attention to. It's like if you just any kind of physical symptom. I always, if I get something like happening physically, I'm 99.9% of the time going to go look up the symptoms in Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life to see what it's correlated to metaphysically, spiritually, and see if there's something that I need to address. So if I'm like having a sore throat, a lot of times sore throats are indication of not saying what you need to say, not speaking your truth. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it's like, well, in what ways, if any, am I not speaking my truth? If I'm having constant stomach aches, and that's related to I think stomach aches are related to like guilt. If I'm constantly getting stomach aches, what is it telling me that I need to pay attention to?
Yeah, there's another book. Terry Stanley, one of our teachers, talked about this. And I'm looking at the book across the room. It's called The Metaphysical Anatomy. It goes a little deeper than Louise Hayes's book, which she also recommends. I have both books. So I've looked at where I've had an ongoing issue, not just a one issue. So if I get the flu, I believe it's the flu. But if I'm getting the flu a lot, then I know something else is going on. So I look for the synchronicities. Talon said, say that again. I'm not quite sure what she was referring to. But
that's like a churchy thing. That's like, that's the waving the hanky in church thing.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Looking for the synchronicities on what is going on with us. So yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Absolutely.
That's great.
It's something to pay attention to. Again, it's always about being mindful. It's about cultivating that mindfulness and recognizing that sometimes, like Freud said, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, and we can't read too much into it, and don't read too much into it, but also recognizing if something is continually showing up in your life, it's probably showing up for a reason. It's probably trying to get your attention in some way, and paying attention to that. What is it that you're trying to say to me? External experience that's showing up. What is it that you're trying to convey, messy house? What is it that you're trying to convey, broken ankle? Whatever. It's like there could be something that is happening that you need to pay attention to. And that is part of that, treating your body as a temple. Recognize that your body, we think about this, like there's some research that talked about the fact that the gut, has so many nerves in it that when people say, like, I had a gut feeling or I had a gut instinct, that literally your gut has nerves. It's like a little mini brain that will tell you if something is wrong.
Right.
But so people don't pay attention to that because they haven't created the space for it, or they don't trust it. And so one of the things that I talk to people about is really, when you're starting on this journey of creating that sacred space, keep a gut instinct journal or an intuitive hit journal, and really be mindful of what your intuition is telling you, because it's not fake, it's real. It's like your gut. This is research. This is medical research that's saying gut instincts are actually very accurate.
Yeah, they are.
Able to listen to them.
Yep.
to be able to pay attention to what our bodies are telling us, to what our external environments are trying to say to us. And the more that we do that, the more that we're able to, again, coming back to self-mastery, that you recognize, okay, when I am in this particular situation, this is what is likely to happen. And so maybe I should not be in that situation anymore because it's not serving me. Yeah. My eyelid is twitching, so if anybody knows what the metaphysical reasons for eyelids twitching, let me know.
Actually, we can talk about that offhand because I have a book that has all that.
Okay.
But let me say this, is that if you pay attention, just like you said, what is the dirty house? What is that trying to tell you? What are the friends with emotions that are, that are attacking you? What is that telling you? Everything is for our good. Everything is the universe working to push us into a certain direction. Also, that also goes with how we get our visions. So what I was taught, and this is just a sidebar, is that when you get your visions, are they coming from the right? Are they coming from the left? Are they coming from behind, above, right in front of you? How are you getting it? Because that is determining who is actually talking to you. So even when it comes to visions, when we hear things vibrationally, the direction that it comes is trying to tell us something. I know that if somebody on my right side starts talking to me, I can zoom in into the energy, but I know that it is somebody who has passed away, and they're talking to me. If I have somebody on my left, that means it's a guide or an angel. I am definitely going to listen more to the guide or the angel, the ascended master or the angel, rather than grandma that's making a recommendation what I need to do with my career. So, but everything is speaking to us. The wind, everything is speaking to us. It's the vibrations. It is when I climb mountains, when there is a rock in a big boulder in the middle of the path, I don't try to push the boulder out of the way. I walk around it because it takes me to new heights. It takes me to new experiences. And that's how everything in our life, the blocks, the roadblocks that we put up, the warning signs that people put out there, the whatever it may be, it's all speaking to us, and it's all there to guide us. And for us to first not blame that person, but us to look internally and going, what can I do to transform this?
Right. Absolutely. That is one of the biggest things, is recognizing that, if you're in a relationship with someone, for instance, and you feel abandoned, they do something and you're like, you feel abandoned, asking yourself, I know we've talked about this before,
right.
Offline, that it's an opportunity, it's like an invitation from your higher self to say, like, okay, so you're feeling abandoned. Where is that wound coming from? Where have you felt abandoned in the past, and where is this like rubbing against, and what do you need to heal? But it's also an invitation to say, where have I abandoned myself?
Yes.
In what ways have I abandoned myself? In what ways have I engaged in this behavior? If you feel rejected, well, in what ways have I rejected myself? If you feel unseen, in what ways have I done this to myself? And that is the invitation. That is the work. That is what we're supposed to, that's how we get to self-mastery, is recognizing that every single thing that comes into our path is an invitation to heal, to simultaneously go deeper within and go higher spiritually. So it's like this, like mutual expansion, that we're going up and we're going higher, and we're going at the same time.
Right. Well, it's a tree of life. I mean, those roots have to go in deep for the tree to become strong, to be able to grow up to the light, right? So that's what you're doing. You're going higher and you're going deeper.
Absolutely. And it's such a fun-ish process. Fun in the sense that, like, once you've gone through it a little bit and you're like, you start to understand how to work with it and how to move through it. It's like, okay, this isn't such a big deal. Like, I know what I'm made of now. I know that I can manage this. I know I can master it. But getting to that point is not quite so fun. So I'm just I like to give everybody a warning that it's like, again, they're like, oh, spirituality is great. Like, I want to get to your level of self-mastery. And I'm like, oh, be careful what you ask for. It's not necessarily the funnest journey to get there, but it's certainly worth the effort. It's like hiking, right? You go or doing anything that's like physically challenging doesn't seem so fun in the moment, but when it's over and you're like, yeah, look at me, I'm a total badass. Like, that's what the experience is like. but it's certainly not for the,
Faint of heart.
yes,
It's not,
it's
and you
that,
have to learn patience because not everybody has this understanding, and you have to then balance the emotions of you want to wring somebody's neck because of what they're throwing at you, but at the same time you're looking within, how did I draw this and what is in myself that's broke, but yet you have to put up boundaries. So all of a sudden you're doing many different things to contain a situation and nourish it and also grow from it. So it's not easy, but it's worth it.
right. And it's easy. Like, I mean, the whole thing is that, like, we talk, we talked in the beginning about this being a path of really learning unconditional love. And it's like, unconditional love is easy when people are acting right. But when someone hasn't taken their act right pill for the day and they come at you like some kind of, then that's where the work begins. That's when you
Right.
start,
Right.
because it's
Right.
like, kids are being perfect little angels and they're like sleeping through the night and they're just so cute. You're like, oh, I love you. It's like super easy. When they haven't slept for like 3 days and they're screaming and crying and you haven't slept and you're exhausted and you're like, it's a little bit harder to love you right now because I have nothing left to give. That is the path. And so
Right.
when people are being difficult, those are your greatest teachers in all reality. When people are coming and kind of wrecking havoc, that's the greatest opportunity, because then it challenges you to dig a little bit deeper, to rise a little bit higher, because that is then when they're not being easy to love, that is when you start to learn exactly where you are in your path of unconditional love. Can I still love you and not, and I mean, again, with boundaries, no, we're going to say that 11 billion times on this video, because unconditional love does not mean unconditional relationship.
That's
And it
right.
doesn't codependence. It means I love you, I wish the best for you, I hold you in high regard. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm gonna like spend time with you, or that I'm gonna engage with you in this particular manner. But there is no judgment. There's just acceptance.
Wow, you just totally decided to talk to me today, huh? So, thanks.
You're welcome. I was thinking about you last night when I pulled those cards, that the Rebel, I don't know if you saw the
No,
Rebel
I
reading
didn't. No.
on Insta last night, because it has a unicorn on it. So of course, every time I see a unicorn, I think about you.
As it should be. I am a mythical creature. So,
Trisha is officially the last unicorn.
right. Let's hope so anyways, right?
By the way, I would watch that movie like 11. I would watch it so often. My brother probably hated it, but it was a great movie.
That's too funny.
Yeah, it's really that this is the journey. This is how we become, and we're all just becoming,
Right, right. We're all
It's
in
like,
that journey becoming, right?
yeah. And the first part is like tearing down all those old structures that no longer work for us, the social conditioning, the family conditioning, all of the things that we were told we're supposed to be, all those false facades, the images, the things that we want to project into the world. When we start tearing that shit down and start building up as who we really are, who we're really meant to be, with that understanding of our divinity and our humanity, that's when we start to become that living sacred vessel that spirit can move through more freely, because we don't have all the blocks and all of the crap that keeps us from being able to be used the way that we want to be.
Right.
Well, I'll speak for me, the way that I want to be.
Right, right, exactly. Exactly. But this applies to everybody on whatever level they're at and what they want to apply to their life and how they want to transform. So, to the degree that you want to transform your life, there is a degree of wisdom that you can take in and change your life accordingly. So,
Absolutely.
so
And
go ahead.
if you have a high calling or a high mission in your life, there's going to be more work. That's just the reality, is that you're going to have more tests and you're going to have more things you have to go through, because you don't get to the top of the highest mountain without climbing.
Right.
And
when you climb, I can speak from experience. You're going to get torn up, and there's going to be blood, and there's going to be bruises, and there's going to be skinned knees and torn skin. So, but I got to tell you, it's worth it.
Yeah,
it's worth it.
Absolutely. I look at my life and I'm like, damn, I have been through some stuff, man, just like through some really tough things in my life. But you know what? I wouldn't change a single freaking thing, because all of it has contributed to the person that I am today. And I mean, not for the first time, but it's been quite a while at this point. But I reached a certain point where I was able to look in the mirror and I loved the person looking back. That I was no longer critiquing, I was no longer judging, I was no longer finding myself coming up short or not good enough or too much, not enough of this, too much of this. I was just like, you know what? I love me. I love me some me. And that, not in a narcissistic, not in a self-centered way, just a real sense of appreciation for having gone through a lot of really hard stuff and still being able to come out on the other end and still being able to love and to be, you know, compassionate and to be, yeah, all of those things.
Right.
That really get you, when you reach hard times, it's like you can go one way or the other. You can become bitter or you can become better. I feel like I'm a meme machine right now. I'm just like spitting out like little quotes.
I like it. I like it. Hey, so why don't you share with us how our audience can get in contact with you?
Sure. Well, the easiest way is here on Facebook. You can just add me or message me. That would be the first way. You can check out my website. It's lisavallejos.com. I'm on like Twitter, Instagram. You can find me on there. And if you want to get a private reading, if you want to get some guidance, intuitive coaching, intuitive counseling, you can reach out to me for that as well.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well,
awesome.
Thank you so much for this. I think everybody that has been on these videos today, I'm taking something with me, and there are things that I need to sit with. And today was with you is no different. So thank you for that. Well, on that note, we are done with our videos for the day. We will start again tomorrow at noon with our astrologer, Christy, Mars, Action, and Willpower, and we will continue my series, Calling in the One. And I have a special guest. Her name is Candace, and she's going to come on to talk about how she called in her beloved. So until tomorrow, have a wonderful day, and we will see you then.
Awesome.
Right, bye, everybody.